You're about to watch my ranking of the X-Men films. I just got done rewatching them from beginning to end, chronological order, and I decided to rank them. If you agree with me, great. If you disagree, that's great, and just share in the comments your opinion. I respect all opinions, so please just watch, enjoy, like, share. This is Brian Redgrave, and enjoy! So let's get started with my ranking of the X-Men film. Again, like I said in the intro, keep in mind this is just my opinion. If you disagree and you think what I put last place is one of the best ones, it's just my opinion. And we can talk about it, we can discuss it in the comments. I'm okay with it all. So, for the record, I just want to point out I will not be including neither of the Deadpool movies, Deadpool 1 or Deadpool 2, even though X-Men characters do show up in there. Again, this is just my opinion on how I want to do it. To me, they're primarily Deadpool and just Deadpool. That will be for, in my opinion, a Deadpool movie ranking. If we get a third and a fourth, and we can rank them. So yes, no Deadpool and no New Mutants. The New Mutants, which I do have. Well, I have them all in Steelbook, by the way. I have them here. I also will not be including, even though again it's also an X-Men spinoff. I have chosen not to include it because I want to focus on the X-Men and on Wolverine itself. Wolverine, the X-Men, that. So, no New Mutants, no Deadpool. So, let's get started. At number, how many are here? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. Number 10. Dark Phoenix. This is number 10. I want to just say something real quick. I do not dislike any of the X-Men movies. I know this movie and a few others get a lot of shit. The reviews for this are terrible. Brian Redgrave personally enjoyed it. This is the Steelbook of Dark Phoenix. Like I said, I have all of them in here. I did have a couple issues, which is why it's obviously the last one. But some of the stuff I like Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, which she was in Apocalypse. I feel like this movie, one of the issues with this movie was we had already done this in The Last Stand, so I don't understand why we felt the need to do it again. And in a way better and in a way worse. I feel like the Phoenix aspect of things was a little better. I feel like Jean Grey as the Phoenix did more here and cooler stuff here than the one in The Last Stand, which, besides 2 scenes or maybe a third, she was just kind of just standing around and just following Magneto on that one. Here, she fights the X-Men and she's running away, looking for explanations, answering what's going on. And there's a better answer to her powers, to the cosmic energy. So I feel like the Phoenix aspect of things is better than The Last Stand. Again, this is just my opinion. Some of you are probably going, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?" That's just my opinion. I feel like that aspect was better. Some of the stuff I didn't like and that bothered me is Quicksilver was easily one of the best characters in this franchise when he got introduced in Days of Future Past and Apocalypse. Scene Stealer in those films, he gets silent very early in the film. Like, he does something cool in the beginning, and then in a fight with, spoilers through all this stuff, in a fight with the Phoenix, with Jean Grey, he gets taken out in the stupidest way, in my opinion, just running around there. And then she has him fall, and then he falls to the ground, and that's it for him. And we don't see him again till the ending of the film, which I thought was stupid to not use one of your best characters. Also, it didn't follow up on the plot established by Days and Apocalypse of him being Magneto's son. At no point does he tell Magneto, "I am your son," which he said in Apocalypse he will in another point. It doesn't follow up on that. I feel like the villains are weak. The aliens, I don't even remember their names. I don't even think they said their names. I feel like the aliens are very weak enemies in the film. I thought they were pretty bad villains. They weren't convincing. It just felt like body snatchers, and I'm sure they're actual X-Men villains. I don't recall seeing them ever. That's just me, but I just felt like they were weak villains, especially to follow Apocalypse, who, even if you don't like that film, he comes across like this powerhouse monster that just is unstoppable. Here, you guys like putty snatchers, essentially. So yeah, but overall, I thought the action was pretty cool. There is fucking dope action in here, so I don't think this movie's terrible. I don't think it deserves. I think it has like a 22% Rotten Tomatoes something. Like I don't think this movie's horrible. I enjoyed it, and I had some fun with it. But yeah, I had some issues with it as well, and it just needed to come together a little bit more cohesively. Supposedly, this was supposed to be originally a two-parter, but then it was changed to just one film. So yeah, that's Dark Phoenix. Good, the last X-Men film to come out, not counting the New Mutants that's back there. The last actual X-Men. At least they didn't end on a cliffhanger. It ended right. The other issue with this movie is, technically we know how it's supposed to end. Like, we know Jean Grey cannot die because Jean Grey is alive in the future, in Days of Future Past, when the timeline is reset. So this is their past by that logic. So we know from the beginning, Jean Grey just cannot die. So I also feel like that hampers the film because we know where it's all gonna end up at. Also, no Wolverine in a story about the Phoenix itself is kind of sucks. Obviously that's because Hugh Jackman had already retired from the character, but from a story perspective, we should have at least had an answer or something as to why he's missing or something. I don't know. So yeah. Also, Mystique kind of died pretty early. I mean, if she was gonna die, that's fine. I just wish it would have been a little later in the film, because I feel like she's a pretty strong character in these films. And she played a huge role, in Apocalypse and Days of Future Past and First Class. So, yeah, that is Dark Phoenix. At number 10, I was just rambling there. Number 9. Yeah, 9. X-Men Origins Wolverine. The very first movie of the Wolverine trilogy. The first of 3. And technically, I watched these films, or rewatch some of these. Like, this was the first time I seen this movie, by the way. I've seen this movie countless times. Yeah, so I watched them in chronological order. So this was the second one I watched. So I watched this after First Class, again, chronological order. I don't hate this movie like everybody else. Like I said, I enjoy all of them. Even the ones that are weaker, I still find some enjoyment. Like I said, I've seen this one countless times. I do have issues with it, but there are things I like. And there's things I like that they did, but it kind of feels like it contradicts later stuff. So Sabretooth is made to be Wolverine's brother. I was okay with that. I didn't really mind that. I actually liked them two as brothers together. That was cool. But that created a plot hole, or no explanation as to why Sabretooth wouldn't know who Logan is in X-Men 1. Remember, this was originally a prequel to X-Men 1 when it first came out in 2009. So when they wrote this film and they decided, let's make them brothers, didn't they think, like, okay, but what about X-Men 1? Why wouldn't Sabretooth know who Wolverine is, or react, or say something? And the thing is that Wolverine wouldn't remember him because he gets shot in the head with the adamantium bullet, so he loses his memory. Okay, that explains him. It doesn't explain Mr. Sabretooth here. I thought he was pretty good. Gambit, I didn't really have too much of a problem with Gambit. I just kind of wish he did more in the film. Obviously, this movie's infamous because of one thing and one thing alone, and that is Mr. right here. The first time Ryan Reynolds played Wade Wilson, Deadpool. I feel like Ryan Reynolds was pretty good in this film in the early beginning of the film, in which it had him being, nonstop talking funny, pretty good action in the beginning. And then the movie just takes a shit in the end in regards to Deadpool by completely switching his character around. And they take the mouth away from the Merc with a mouth. It just didn't make any sense. He gets all these powers I've never seen Deadpool have before. It just, in a way, if it's not because he's named Wade Wilson and they mentioned the word Deadpool at one point, you wouldn't even know that's Deadpool in the film. You really wouldn't. So that's honestly the reason that movie's infamous for this. So yeah, that kind of sucked. I like the idea of them being brothers, but it created that issue with the later film. Gambit didn't do much. He was just in the film. And okay. Yeah, another issue with this movie is that being a prequel, you know where it all goes. It all ends. And I feel like being a prequel to the original X-Men, it should have tried to mimic or copy a little better the flashbacks established in X-Men 2, which shows flashbacks to Stryker. And again, watching them in chronological order, back to back, and days after days, day after day. It felt weird watching this film and then watching X-Men 2 and seeing the flashbacks be different to what I saw here. And obviously that's maybe because this movie came out later, but then when they made this movie, they should have done it to match it a little better to what they did in X-Men 2. And we know the reason he loses his memory here. And I know in this movie Stryker mentions erases memory, he wakes up, gets angry. But in X-Men 2, they make it seem like that's the reason he lost his memory. So yeah, it kind of sucks. This movie just created more problems for the future movies, and continuity is not this franchise strong suit. It definitely is. The claws were terrible. CGI claws. I don't know why they did that. The claws were good in X-Men 1, 2, 3, which are the ones out at this point. So yeah, but the claws were pretty terrible in my opinion in this film. They were pretty CGI. But yeah, so number 9. Number 8. X-Men The Last Stand. Dun, 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 dun. So, the first time they tried to do the Dark Phoenix saga, and like I mentioned earlier, I feel like the Dark Phoenix aspect of Dark Phoenix was done better than here. Like I said, she's just kind of sitting around in this film, for one. 2, they killed Cyclops almost in the beginning. Just like nothing. Again, I don't have a problem with characters dying, but make their death meaningful, not meaningless. She's just sitting around because this movie is not just dealing with the Jean Grey Phoenix stuff. It also decides to deal with the cure. There's a cure to cure mutants, so mutants can be normal. I like that plot. I do. And I like Magneto standing up against that because there's nothing wrong with us. It's very Magneto-like. I like that. It's perfect. It just makes sense. But juggling that, at the same time, she's juggling the Phoenix story, the movie does it very poorly. And it comes across as the movie starts with one thing, and it goes to another, and then it just kind of fuses in both. When at the end of the film, they're fighting against the cure, and Jean's just sitting there. And that's the thing, technically standing there. That's the thing, she's just standing around the entire time. And the Phoenix, so strong and powerful, it's just standing around the entire time. Let's see. She kills Xavier, but not really. And then she kills Cyclops, and that's it. She's just standing around the whole time, following Magneto. It's just I don't know. I feel like it kind of sucks how they did that. I wasn't a fan of that. And obviously, and then this movie followed X-Men 2, which was a much better film than this. And it's just, it did hurt it. And the way that Xavier was written out, and the way Cyclops was written out, and what I said about the plot and everything, it just kind of sucks. It was annoying. It introduced characters like Juggernaut. Rogue was minimized a lot more than what she had been in the first 2 films, and I like Rogue. And she kind of just doesn't do much of anything in this film, which kind of sucks. But yeah, so yeah, X-Men The Last Stand. That's 10, 9, 8. Number 7, X-Men Apocalypse. I love this steelbook, by the way. I fucking love this steelbook. I feel like the steelbook is very, very dope. I don't give you this digital code because it expired years ago. So 2019 to be exact. X-Men Apocalypse. Another movie that gets a lot of flack, a lot of hate, and following Days of Future Past. It is a disappointment, but I really see the other 3 I really had a lot of issues with, and that I mentioned, and this is one though that people hated that I thought was pretty fucking good. Apocalypse. So obviously the movie being named Apocalypse after Apocalypse. And if you don't notice, the 4 horsemen are right there, essentially. Magneto, and this is Psylocke, Storm, Archangel. So let's talk about Apocalypse. Apocalypse looks very different than he did like in the X-Men animated series. Look very different. So I get that a lot of people hated his look. Despite him looking pretty fucking different, I thought he looked cool. I like this motivation. To him, we're gods, we're mutants, and he sees this world where mutants are hiding, and and you have capitalism, and you have symbols, you have flags, you have monuments, and he wants to destroy it all. And realistically, from a real life standpoint, he wouldn't be wrong. That is what the world has come to. And it sucks. So I could understand his motivation. He feels like he needs to tear it all down, and we're gonna kill everything, and the strong who survive will carry us into the new world. The actor who plays him, who's the guy who played Moon Knight, I can't remember his name. I think his name is Isaac something, not literally something. So yeah, I liked him in Apocalypse. So, but one of my issues with Apocalypse is that the Four Horsemen are kind of all underutilized. Kind of all of them. Psylocke doesn't do much of anything, really, until she fights at the end. She doesn't really do much of anything. Archangel has a fight in the beginning with Nightcrawler, because this movie introduced Nightcrawler, who had appeared since X-Men 2. That was another thing, by the way. Nightcrawler was not in this fucking film, and there was no explanation for it. That's another negative here. So this movie introduced Nightcrawler. I thought Nightcrawler was alright. It's pretty cool. Not as cool as the one from X-Men 2, I thought. But he's a younger one. So yeah, I just feel like all of them are underutilized except for Magneto. I feel like Magneto is the only one, and that's because he's Magneto and he's been in previous films, and you follow that strong character. And the performances, even some of the stuff that's bad, the acting in this film is so strong for people like Michael Fassbender that it carries it. It still carries it through pretty well. So Magneto's living among humans for, I think it was 10 years. He works among humans. He has a wife. He has a child. And it's all... I was watching the film. This was also one of the films I had never watched before. This one I watched before in Origins. This one I had never seen before. I watched it for the first time. So, and seeing Magneto like that, I was like, oh, interesting. Oh, this is pretty cool. Oh, okay. I dig this. And then something happens at work. He saves somebody's life. He uses his powers to save somebody's life. Yet that resulted in them calling the cops. The cops go to his house. Are you Eric? Are you Magneto? And eventually, yes, they know it's him. Then his little girl panics, and birds start attacking and all that. And a soldier accidentally throws, I think it was bow and arrow. I think it was an arrow, and hits the girl, the daughter, and the wife, and they both die. And Magneto just loses it. He loses it. And there's nothing worse than losing a child. They just, as a parent, there will be nothing worse. So to see him go through that, it was crazy. I was like, wow, like it was a powerful scene. And then he just kills them all like that. I thought that scene was pretty fucking cool. And like I said, Michael Fassbender is an awesome Magneto. I think he's an awesome Magneto. I love this performance as Magneto in all the films he played the character. So yeah, I felt like the fight against Apocalypse was pretty fucking dope. This is a movie that gets a lot of hate. I personally really, really dug it. It's in the 80s. They have 80s rock and stuff. And I'm a metalhead myself, so hell yeah, that did not bother me. The movie was honestly solid. I thought, before I watched it, I'm like, man, this movie gets a lot of shit. I'm probably going to watch a piece of shit. I'm like, I watched it, I'm like, but I liked it. Boom, 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 boom. That's fucking... X-Men fans are attacking me all over the world right now. Yeah, Apocalypse. I keep losing track. 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 6. The original X-Men. This is a really good movie. The very first movie that came out in the year 2000. If I didn't say it before, I feel like the steelbooks to these movies are pretty dope. So, this is some of the stuff I was talking about earlier. By Origins being made after this, they just created some plot holes. So the Sabretooth's in this film. He doesn't know who Wolverine is, even though technically he's Wolverine's brother. Doesn't say anything, doesn't talk about it. He looks completely different, even though, they shouldn't be changing looks because they should be looking about the same. Wolverine looks exactly the same. Sabretooth looks nothing like. So, yeah, it made that issue. This movie establishes that Magneto helped Xavier create Cerebro, but then you see in the later prequel, First Class, that's not even true. And I watched these back to back, so I was like, wow, this is like yeah, this is not following what the movies are setting up, and that's what happens when you create movies out of order. It kind of sucks. But overall, action in this movie solid. I like the plot. Magneto's trying to use Rogue. This is the movie where Rogue was the most important character, and then with every movie that came out, she became less important, and then completely disappeared pretty much. And if you're a fan of Rogue, this is the best movie where you're gonna see Rogue out of all of them. Magneto wants her because he has his machine to turn humans into mutants, but Magneto doesn't know it'll kill the humans when they become mutants because they can't take it. So yeah, I like the plot. I feel like Magneto's plot is pretty good, pretty strong. The action's pretty good. Uh, this film, some of the CGI is quite dated. The movie came out 22 years ago, so it's understandable. It's understandable, but the CGI is quite dated. But overall, the solid action. Hugh Jackman debut as Wolverine. Hugh Jackman is, oh my God, an amazing Wolverine, an amazing actor, and just even something like Origins Wolverine, where you have these issues, he carries the film as best as he can. So yeah, overall, the original X-Men was a ton of fun. Again, it creates some plot holes when you watch it in continuity, like, Xavier Stat says Magneto has found a way to block me from reading his head, but if you watch First Class, he technically already should know that. So yeah, that's the one aspect that sucks out of it, but overall, they came out in 2000, 22 years ago. This movie was great, and even now, this movie's still great. I had a lot of fun watching it. I watched Origins Wolverine and this one back to back. Next up is a movie I had seen once before, and I thought it was back in 2016, and then I watched it again, and this time around, I'm like, what was I thinking? This movie was pretty fucking awesome, and that's The Wolverine, the second Wolverine film, the Wolverine trilogy, which is weird to say because none of the Wolverine movies follow each other. They're all set in different points of his life. So, yeah, the first time I saw this movie back in 2016, this is the point where I kind of stopped watching X-Men films. It got to a point where I just stopped. I saw 1, 2, 3, Origins Wolverine. I saw First Class. I saw this one. And then I stopped. I didn't watch anything after this movie until my rewatching all the X-Men films this time around. And honestly, the action in this film was fucking awesome, fucking solid, fucking great. Hugh Jackman is awesome. Taking place in Japan, different view of the world, different things, you're seeing different things, so it automatically stands apart. Honestly, some awesome action. The only thing where this movie kind of falls apart, no, I won't say falls apart because it wasn't like terrible, but when Wolverine fights the giant samurai cyborg robot, whatever you want to call him, that had the guy who died, whose name I forgot. I'm not good with the names like that. That it just came off a little clunky. I personally didn't like Viper as the villain too much either. That's why I feel like the film is kind of weak, the villain aspect. But Hugh Jackman is fucking great in this film. The action's fucking great. She was fucking great. It was cool. And then you see Wolverine dealing with the fact that he's immortal. He kind of wants to die. He wants to die, which is funny because that comes into play to a later film that's I haven't discussed it yet, but he wants to die. It's like, man, I'm dealing with this immortality. I'm just not, he's suffering. This movie takes place after The Last Stand, which I forgot to mention. Another thing that pissed me off about The Last Stand, now that we're here, is how Wolverine kills Jean Grey with one fucking attack. I love you, and then he kills her, and that's it. The Phoenix died with one attack. That's something else that pissed me off. But yeah, that being said, that's why it's another reason why Solo. We see Hugh Jackman, Logan, dealing with the death of Jean. So this movie, if you didn't know, or maybe you don't know, it takes place after The Last Stand, and you have to watch it because you see him suffering. And I like that they did that. It's a standalone sequel to The Last Stand. Standalone in the sense that it's its own plot, no other X-Men stuff, but it takes place after The Last Stand, and the way it just drives him crazy, having had to kill the woman he loved. It's just driving him crazy. I like the fact that the film took his time to show his suffering, and then he's come to this thing where he wants to die. He wants to be with Jean again. So yeah, I feel like the story was pretty good until that part. There's a couple cool scenes in here. One definitely cool scene when they're all shooting I think they're arrows with ropes at his back, and he's just all there. And there's so many of them. He just and then he falls to the ground. It's cool scene. Cool scenery was the word I was looking for earlier. So yeah, the Wolverine I thought was pretty fucking dope. I just feel like the villain aspect was a little weak. But overall, this is a really nice steel book too. He's holding a sword here and the poster of the film, but he doesn't really use a sword, but the big ass samurai sword at the end. Uh, the post credit scene was meant to set up Days of Future Past. The one thing with this movie that kind of sucks is that by the end of this movie, Wolverine is back to having bone claws, and Days of Future Past he has metal claws. No explanation, no answer. And there might be an answer in a comic or somewhere else, but when you're doing movies, you should make sure your movies follow each other better. And yeah, he goes from bone claws at the end, and then you watch Days. Oh, back to metal claws. Oh, okay, I guess. And then the end credit scene shows Xavier still being alive. No actual answer for it, but I told you you're not the only one with gifts, and that's it. Okay, I guess you're just alive because. So yeah, the Wolverine, pretty strong film. Pretty strong film. So we have the last four. Number 4, X-Men 2. X2 United. Well, X2 X-Men United. Another pretty cool steel book. We have the characters in here. A movie that in every way, every aspect, which is why it's rated higher than the other two, was superior and stronger than its first movie. I mean, if the first X-Men film was good, this one was just knocked it out the park even more and beyond. And it started showing you Wolverine's flashbacks, even though kind of Origins Wolverine kind of fucked that up a bit. So, yeah, Wolverine's flashback. General Stryker's back in this film, but he wasn't Origins Wolverine. Rogue is still semi-important, but not as important as she was in part 1, but more important than she was in part 3. The debut of Nightcrawler. The movie opens with Nightcrawler attempting to kill the person in a fucking dope scene. I remember seeing this movie in theaters. They just teleporting, whooping ass, fighting. It was without a doubt one of the coolest things in the movie and in this franchise. And it's a shame Nightcrawler was not in the fucking Last Stand. So yeah, the movie just improved and everything. Visual effects are even better too. The action's even better. The story's even better. Magneto's still in prison, and he escapes thanks to Mystique. Overall, it was just a better film, and this is where the movie starts to set up somewhat the Last Stand, where her at some point her eyes will glow red. The film ends with her dying, but because of the Last Stand, we know she didn't actually die. So yeah, it was just a stronger film. Magneto's awesome. I feel like General Stryker was pretty cool too, and it's cool to see Wolverine looking for these answers. But at the time when you watch them now in chronological order, you watch X-Men Origins Wolverine, and it just kind of starts. It doesn't mesh as well as it should. Her, who I don't know her name, she's Psych X-23, somewhat. I guess she was pretty cool. I like her fight with Logan in the film. Yeah, X2, X-Men United, man. It honestly it was stronger for them the first. The music was fucking dope. There's the scene with General Stryker takes over the school, and Logan's trying to defend the kids. Kids are running, and they're taking kids. It was pretty sad, seeing the way they were taking kids. Stryker with no giving no fucks. It was just it was cool seeing Wolverine angry just fighting the soldiers. We see Colossus in this film, even though he doesn't really do much but protect the kids. It honestly, it was a strong film. It honestly was a strong film, and for a long time, if it wasn't for 3 other films in this list, it's definitely one of the best ones. It's number 4 for me. It honestly is that damn good. And just again, I said Michael Fassbender was an awesome Magneto, but Ian McKellen, if I'm pronouncing that right, he was just as awesome as a Magneto as Michael Fassbender, and that's one thing this franchise did. It just the young Magneto and the young Xavier are just as great as the older Magneto and the older Xavier. The fact that they did that so well is pretty fucking good. Yeah, man, the ending scene is pretty sad. It's just honestly, it's a fucking good X-Men film. but it's number 4. There are 3 movies that I consider to have been better. A movie that I just watched for the first time in my X-Men rewatching. I told you the Wolverine was the last one, so I never watched the follow-up until now. X-Men Days of Future Past at number 3. Dun, dun, dun. I like this picture of the 2 Xaviers. There is some stuff in here. Pretty cool steelbook. See. So yeah, X-Men Days of Future Past. Odyssey. So the only issue I have with this film, the only issue is the Wolverine ends with them warning Wolverine that something's about to happen. This movie starts, the world's already taking a shit. The world's already pretty much over. Mutants are dying. Sentinels are hunting them down. And that's the only thing. I just wish, the transition was a little better than, hey, we need your help, something's going to happen. Next film, world took a shit. It's already taking a shit. And they tell you about it, but it's not the same as seeing it. That was my only issue. Action was great. Story was great. This movie is so damn good. So Wolverine goes back in time to try to prevent the whole creation of the Sentinels. And because in the past, they used Mystique's DNA to create the Sentinels and be the way they are. Not create them, make them the way they are. Because of our ability to shapeshift. Which is why in the future, they can shapeshift into different powers and materials need be. So yeah, and like I said, the metal clause for that explanation in the future was will kind of suck. And my other issue with the movie, I wish the original X-Men, because this movie is a sequel to First Class and the Wolverine and The Last Stand, kind of just all of it. It has original X-Men and young X-Men, because Wolverine goes back in time to try to change the future to make it that this is never so. And this movie is the one that resets the timeline. So the original X-Men 1, 2, 3, Origins Wolverine, the Wolverine just never actually happened, because he goes back to 1973 and changes the whole timeline. Going back in time, seeing Logan interact with the young X-Men, the young Magneto, the young Xavier was fucking cool. Quicksilver just steals the show in this film. It was really cool. So yeah, it just honestly, Quicksilver was fucking awesome. He's funny, he's great. His scenes were great, and makes the one from Age of Ultron look like shit next to the one in this film. So yeah, Wolverine succeeds, resets the timeline, but the one thing in this film that I just feel like, not in this film, the one that followed up, Apocalypse, the ending of this film, after everything's been done, everything's been fixed, you see Logan be rescued by General Stryker, but it's not General Stryker, it's Mystique. And then come Apocalypse, at some point, he ended up with the General Stryker, and he became Weapon X. It would have made more sense if this film would have ended that timeline with him getting captured by the actual Stryker, and then Apocalypse, his appearing in Apocalypse, would have made more sense. But it doesn't, because Mystique helped him, but how did General Stryker actually still get a hold of Logan? It just, and that's not this movie's fault, that's Apocalypse's fault. So yeah, Mystique is an important character in this film, because she's the reason why the future essentially takes a shit when they have her blood. So they get Magneto, Xavier to try to help Wolverine stop this event. Magneto's answer to this is try to kill Mystique. So obviously that doesn't happen. So yeah, it's just strong performances. It's just great. It honestly was great. The thing with Magneto is you understand his character by this point, and you understand why he is the way he is. So the speech at the end was great. The fight at the end was great against Beast, with controlling the Sentinels, Magneto against them. It was just awesome. And this is not just one of the best X-Men films. This is one of the best superhero movies out there. Like this movie has stood the test of time. This movie is almost 8 years old, and I never watched it, and I'm kind of mad that I didn't watch it back then, because this movie was awesome. Like I said, the no explanation of the metal clause, and then the not enough of the original cast of the X-Men, and this movie's depressing too, because everybody's dying at the hands of the Sentinel. Everybody's fucking dying. So the movie is a little depressing, but in a way, the movie ends in a happy way, because they successfully changed the timeline. and Jean's alive, Cyclops alive. Everything seems to be well. Everything seems to be good. And it could have honestly ended right here, and it would have ended on a happy ending, and the franchise would have overall been a strong franchise with X-Men 1, X-Men 2, First Class, the Wolverine, and it would have ended good. You only would have had one, the Origins Wolverine to be the thing. The franchise would have ended in an excellent way had it ended here, but of course, movie made a ton of money, so we're not going to end it here. So, Days of Future Past was awesome. By the way, I did not watch the road cut. This is the original one. I will watch the road cut. Now that's why I said road doesn't appear in the film by 2 seconds at the end. So I will watch the road cut though. Number 2. Dun, 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 dun. I was debating which of these two films should be number 2 and which number should be number 1, because honestly, these two particular films are very, very fucking good, very great, very awesome. It's just both of these films. So either one is 2 or 1. It's just I'm still debating as we're talking. I'm holding it in my hand. But at this moment in time, number 2 is, in my opinion, Logan. I fucking love this film. The strongest in the Wolverine trilogy. A great film. A great send-off. The franchise could have ended here instead of Dark Phoenix, and similar to the Days of Future Past, it would have ended on a huge fucking note. I mean, look, I put the last X-Men film at number 10, and the one before it is number 2. Movie's strong, movie's great, action's great, Hugh Jackman's great. He's always been great, and the farewell for Hugh Jackman and Wolverine was also fucking great. X-23 was fucking cool. Movie was sad. It was kind of heartbreaking hearing what happens to the X-Men. This movie's only, in my opinion, only flaw. There's one thing I wish they did differently. Only flaw, though, is that it doesn't fully correctly tell you when it takes place, because it will take place technically 6 years after Days of Future Past. I believe Days of Future Past took in 2023. This 2029. But the movie, which is what I was thinking. But then the movie says is that no mutant has been born in 25 years. And then with the end of days and the way everything is, that's not true. And then the movie also mentions that Xavier met Wolverine while he was doing cage fights, which would have been right for X-Men 1. Because that's what he was doing before he meets the X-Men and Rogue and all that. But because of the timeline reset of Days of Future Past, that no longer happens. So technically he met him in 1973. So that's not correct. It's kind of hard to pinpoint. It obviously takes place at the end of things, but which timeline? Is it his own timeline? Is it the original timeline? Is it after Days of Future Past? I want to just imagine it's after Days of Future Past and not break my head with it. But we don't truly know. And I feel like that kind of hurts the film just a tiny little bit, because if the movie would have established it's this timeline, it's this moment, it is after Days, you connect with Wolverine even more because everything you've been through with the character. But at times, because you don't know, you start to wonder, is this really the same Wolverine than the ones from the other films? And so it's kind of hard to know. But despite that little issue, the movie's fucking awesome. I did read that the director originally wanted to show how all the X-Men died, but I kind of wish he did, and that would have been a cool scene. But instead, we just get told, Xavier's going through these seizures, but because he's so strong, it kills mutants, and humans become paralyzed too. But it kills mutants. So it was just the fact that Xavier, the man who always was into protecting mutants, ended up being the reason mutants pretty much go extinct. It's heartbreaking. And the scene where he's talking to this clone of Wolverine, which is the other thing I was going to get to, and he's crying. He's like, I did unspeakable things. He's sad. That shit was heartbreaking. It hit me right here. I was like, oh shit, man, that fucking sucks, Xavier. Wolverine's sort of rough as Xavier, which is a little frustrating because it's not his fault, but at the same time, it's understandable considering that, everybody died. So this film did take place after Days of Future Past. The timeline reset was for nothing because, the world's not ending, but all mutants are pretty much gone extinct. The other thing I didn't really like was the Wolverine clone. I feel like they could have done something a little better than a Wolverine clone to be the final villain. But I guess at the same time, how appropriate that the final villain is another Wolverine. I don't know. I just feel like that aspect was like it's not terrible. I wish it would have been better. You know, I guess they talked about having Sabretooth at one point in the film. To what role I don't know, but it would like a Sabretooth clone still being the brother would have brought a little bit more closure to to the previous Sabretooth stuff. Even if it wouldn't have been him, even if it would have just been a clone, I think it would have been better. But that's just besides the point. The ending was sad, and I watched these in chronological order, so I finished my X-Men rewatching with this. So and it was the best way to do it because to see Wolverine die at the end was just fucking. I watched the film. I was like, yeah, my X-Men rewatching is definitely over because Logan is dead. So it's appropriate to watch this at the end, and it's a shame this didn't close out the franchise over Dark Phoenix. But yeah, so I put this in number 2, but this easily could have been number 1 because it's just an awesome film. The action, I definitely kind of want to watch it again. But it's just again, this is just my opinion. If you think I'm wrong in putting this number 2 and it should be number 1, and if you think my number 1 is number 10, that's fine. But my number 1 is the first one I watched in my chronological order. Rewatching, I saw this movie at the theater. Was X-Men First Class. I fucking love this film. I feel like the action in this film is great. I feel like the story is well written, so well. Both of these characters are different sides of the coin. They are the same, but they go about things in a different way because of the way they've lived their lives. Magneto suffered and lost his mom, so you get his pain, his anger, his hate. And you understand it, and you understand why Xavier is the complete opposite. It's just them two. Honestly, it's just fucking awesome in these roles, and this was the best X-Men film, X-Men First Class, and it's the first class of X-Men, the very first X-Men, the first X-Men team. The action was great. I fucking love Magneto's theme in this film. I can't actually play it because of copyright reasons, so I won't play it, but that's my best interpretation of how to do it for you. But I honestly thought, and maybe you disagree and you think this movie's not that great, maybe you think this movie's overhyped, but I just fucking love the film. I love the team up. I love how they're going for New Mutants. I love how they're using Cerebro, which is what I said earlier. This movie establishes that it was actually Hank Beast who made Cerebro, not them two. Sure, they were there, but they didn't make Cerebro. And by the end of the film, they go their separate ways, so he couldn't have helped them make Cerebro. It couldn't have. The characters are great. Hank is great. Azazel, at the time, we lost Nightcrawler after X-Men 2. We haven't seen him. So seeing Azazel be like Nightcrawler, also in a way, kind of more badass because, he's killing people and stuff. He was fucking cool. So yeah, the characters were great. The villain, Shaw, I think his name was Shaw, was fucking cool. The story was just so well written. I just fucking honestly just love this film. I love the story. I love the music. I love the characters. I love the cast. And like I said, either of these two films could easily be number 1, number 2. You could swap them. Maybe 2 years from now, I'll watch them again. I'll be like, fuck no, Logan is a little better. But it's not gonna change. I can promise you that. Oh, these two being here. I mean, granted, in number 1, it could change when the MCU decide to do their own Wolverine film or X-Men film. Could play things differently later on, but it's just, man, this movie was awesome. The scene, everything, and the way Xavier was paralyzed because of Magneto, but not on purpose. It all just was so awesome, nice, heartbreaking. The scene where Magneto is holding all the missiles on the rocket's emitter and sending him back, and you see Xavier trying to stop him, and they're fighting, and the missiles are just going back and forth. Ah, man, it was great. The way Magneto killed Shaw, it was cool. You felt his anger, you felt his pain, which is why I think it was Dark Phoenix. He says, killing somebody doesn't make it go away, and he knows, he would know. So yeah, it honestly just was great. The cast is so fucking awesome. So yeah, my opinion is X-Men First Class is the best X-Men film. Again, this is just my opinion. If you don't agree, it's cool. I'm not mad. If you think First Class is number 8, 10, 5, it's cool. If you think Logan's number 1, if you think, I don't know, if you think the Wolverine is number 1, that's cool. So, to recap, number 10, Dark Phoenix. Number 9, X-Men Origins Wolverine. Number 8, X-Men The Last Stand. Number 7, X-Men Apocalypse. Number 6, the original X-Men. Number 5, The Wolverine. Number 4, X-Men United. X-Men 2. Number 3, Days of Future Past. Number 2, Logan. And number 1, X-Men Days of Future Past. This has been the one, the only Brian Redgrave with my ranking of the X-Men films. I had a blast rewatching this film. I had a blast watching some of these for the first time. If you didn't understand, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, Logan, and Dark Phoenix, I watched all for the first time. So I had a blast watching these films again, and some of them for the first time. And yes, I didn't watch them at the time, but binging them was a lot of fun. So this has been the one, the only Brian Redgrave. Like, share, comment your list, your opinion. This was a long video. Sorry. I just had a lot of stuff to say about all of them. So this has been Brian Redgrave. Like, share, subscribe. Redgrave out.